Hey everyone, welcome back to Wicked Deeds. We're your hosts. I'm Brittany.
I'm John.
And today's episode will be a little different in that it does have a definitive conclusion, but that doesn't mean there won't be a ton of questions along the way. We will always strive to bring you stories worth thinking about, and we hope you spread the word and talk about them with your friends and family. With that being said, it would mean so much to us if you could please subscribe to our podcast on whichever platform you're listening on so you won't miss any content we release, whether it be our scheduled Tuesday episodes or extra drops throughout the week. If you enjoy what we're doing here, leave us a 5-star written review so we can continue to grow and provide more content for you to indulge in. Now, today we'll be talking about the murder of Timothy Wiltsey. Timothy Wiltsey was just 5 years old in 1991. He was a sweet kid and loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Saturday, May 25th, 1991, was on Memorial Day weekend. He and his mother, Michelle Ledzinski, were headed to the carnival at John F. Kennedy Memorial Park in Sayreville, New Jersey. Michelle parked at the nearby high school around 7 o'clock, and she and Timothy walked together to the carnival. Timothy was so excited, they were having a blast, and little Timmy was loving the rides. They had only been there a half hour when Michelle wanted to stop and grab them a soda. She had him wait off to the side of the beverage trailer while she stood in line. When it was her turn, she ordered, waited for the drink, and paid the cashier. But when Michelle turned around, Timothy was nowhere to be seen. Frantic, Michelle is calling for him and searching everywhere. 15 minutes go by and she still can't find him. Conveniently, a police officer was working the carnival that night, so Michelle let him know she needed help because she couldn't find her son. Authorities are then made aware of the missing boy. A description of Timmy and what he was last seen wearing was provided to police: a red tank top, red shorts, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sneakers. Police sprung into action right away. They searched the entire area with helicopter, police, and even search dogs. But by the end of the night, police were confident Timothy was nowhere near the carnival, at least not anymore. They had no trace of him.
These are the type of instances that create helicopter parents.
Oh, so true.
I think it's weird, just to start off, like, you have a 5-year-old, like, why not wait in line with him? Why not hold his hand while you're about to order this? Like, why have him wait off to the side of a beverage trailer?
It already starts off with a question. You're like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't make sense.
Yeah. What else is new? I think that's a running theme now.
I agree.
Tell me the first little bit of the story and I'm already like, really? This is what's going on?
Well, that's why they're the stories that they are.
I guess so, yeah.
So the next day, Michelle is interviewed and asked what happened the night before when Timothy disappeared. I'm going to play the audio here for you so you can listen to exactly what Michelle had to say during this interview with police.
And en route to Kennedy Park, you don't recall being followed?
No,
Where did you park on your arrival at Kennedy Park?
at the high school in the back.
Okay. Was it crowded on your arrival?
Yes,
And you arrived at the Kennedy Park at approximately 7 o'clock.
yes.
What was Timothy's state of mind at this point?
He was excited.
So you and he were having a good time on this particular day. On your arrival at Kennedy Park, what did you do?
We went down and we bought tickets for rides. We went on 3 rides. We went on the Gator ride. We went over the castle. There was a castle walk. And we went on the cars. And we played a game that was in the middle of the kiddie rides. I don't remember what it was. And then I wanted to go get a drink. So we went over to the concession stand. And he stood on the side of the trailer over where I could see him. And when I went up to get a soda, I was paying for it. And I was getting my change back. And I turned around and he was gone. And after that, I was looking for him. And I ran into my niece, Jennifer. And she helped me look for him, and then we ran into a police officer around 7:45, and he reported it, and he helped me look for him the rest of the time.
Okay, so you were at Kennedy Park approximately a half hour before you discovered Tim was missing.
We were there a half
Or
hour.
you were a half hour before Tim became lost.
Right.
Okay. When you left Tim at the end of the trailer and you went to buy the soda, while you were in line, were you keeping an eye on Tim while you were in line?
Yes.
What was the time period from when you last saw Tim and then turned around and he was gone?
Had to be about 2 minutes or so. What I did was take my money out of my pocketbook, paid the guy, gave me my change back, soda, and then turned around and he was gone.
Okay, so within this 2-minute period, Tim disappeared.
Yes.
And you were searching for him by yourself and then with your niece, Jennifer Blair, and her friends for approximately 15 minutes before you found a police officer and reported the incident to the police,
Yes.
which in turn triggered the search that we are now involved in, correct?
Yes.
While at Kennedy Park, did you observe anyone paying you or Timothy any undue attention?
Just one of the carnival guys. He looked at me a few times. That's all I remember.
Did this carnival guy say anything to you?
No, he just looked.
Now, I feel like I have a lot of thoughts as I listen to this recording, so I'll break them down. 1, she's awfully calm and relaxed for having just lost her son. I mean, I understand that not everyone's going to react the same way in a situation like this, but her demeanor just seems so calm and matter-of-fact to me.
Yeah, there's like a bubbliness to her voice.
Yeah.
That's just odd. It almost sounds like there's no stress in the situation at all.
Almost
like
relieved.
Not relieved, but almost like, I don't even know. I don't know how to explain it, but like, obviously, if you just lost your child, you'd be like frantic. How fast after this interview, how long ago did he go missing before this interview?
This is the next morning.
Mm-hmm. Like, she sounds like she had a good night's sleep. She woke up and she's like, all right, I got to go tell him what happened. It's not like she was up all night looking for her kid like most parents would be doing.
Exactly. Not able to sleep. I mean,
I get Casey Anthony vibes here.
All right.
She's out partying with her pals while her kids
missing
God
or
knows
wherever.
Right.
Exactly. So the second thing that I have to say about this is she mentions that she had her eyes on Timothy while she's waiting in line, but then she contradicts that by saying she looked away for 2 minutes to pay and take the soda from the clerk. 2 minutes is a lot of time, especially when you're leaving a young child unattended. A kid can run off in like 4 seconds flat, so for her to not be watching him for 2 minutes sets off alarm bells to me. Either that, or she totally has no grasp of how long 2 minutes actually feels.
I know. I mean, we're also talking about like 1991 here too, though. Mm-hmm. And as different as it is now, like this is 30 years ago. 30 years ago, you could let your kid ride his bike to his friend's house and do whatever. Like, it wasn't unheard of to let your kids go out and roam and do things, and much more free. Not like I was saying earlier with helicopter parents and people like need to know where the kids are at all times. Not everybody's like that now, but still. We're speaking from the perspective of we know that something bad happened. Mm-hmm. She was out there with her kid, going to a carnival, whatever. It doesn't seem like there was anybody that was like hovering around outside of this carnival worker that she's saying looked at them. Would I have done that? Or would I have had my kid in line with me? Yeah, I would have my kid in line with me. I wouldn't have, let him out and roam just because things like this do happen. Mm-hmm. But I think about it, right? You're in line. He's off to the side of this beverage trailer. You walk up, you're getting the drink, whatever. I mean, 2 minutes can go by. You get your money out, you pay, you get the drinks, you get your change, and then you go. So maybe, from her vantage point, once she stepped up to buy that beverage, she could no longer see the side of the trailer.
That's true. I think it just goes back to like what you said before about you would have your kid in line with you. Like I would be like death grip on my child. You're at a busy carnival. You don't know where they could run off to. And I think that's like just the first part of it that, throws me off.
Yeah.
And then like you said before too, the carnival guy that she talks about. Like, she's only bringing it up because he asked, and she's like, oh, well, maybe I can, say that there was some other guy here. And
Some shady carnival worker.
yeah.
I think it's strange. Like, I think that you kind of feel when eyes are on you, and there's that sixth sense to it. So I think that she was just grasping at something to give him an answer.
Yeah, rather than saying no.
Right. Rather than saying no, she was trying to come up with something that she could say that was almost unassuming.
Yeah, that makes sense. Timothy's case soon becomes national news. He's featured on America's Most Wanted, and his photo is even put on milk cartons across the country to bring awareness to his disappearance. Well, there's obviously a lot of press surrounding the case now that it's gone national, and everyone wants to bring Timothy home, except maybe not Michelle. She is definitely not reacting the way anyone would expect after your child goes missing. Like I said before, you can't guarantee how anyone's going to act when something like this happens, but I feel like she's acting pretty indifferent to the fact that her only child has disappeared. She's actually even seen on TV at one point and says, quote, "Everyone is waiting to see a grieving mother on TV break down, crying, hysterical, because the public, they thrive on that stuff, but I'm not going to do it." I mean, in one respect, okay, I get it, but if you're trying to get suspicion off of you, it's a pretty poor way to do it. It's also brought up later that Michelle had even left the country for a vacation in the Bahamas after Timothy went missing, and people all over were searching for him. Sure, maybe you need to clear your head and relax. That could be one argument for her behavior, but I honestly don't care how different people deal with a situation like this. That's just plain wrong. I have a hard time shutting off my own anxiety and stress in minuscule situations, so never mind something this huge. How would she be able to just go lay on a beach in the Bahamas knowing her son's missing?
Like I said, Casey Anthony.
Yeah.
This is like textbook, like the same exact case. Your kid randomly goes missing. Everybody that your child doesn't mean as much to, or shouldn't mean as much to, is out there looking for him. He's on national news, milk cartons, all this. He's on TV. People are really trying to find your kid, and you're out on a vacation. There's something seriously wrong there. Now, negligence could be a possibility, that she purposely just wasn't paying attention to him, or he never disappeared and she dumped him somewhere.
That's kind of where a lot of people are at this point, and they're like, what did she do? Did he even go to the carnival? Is this just a front? What really happened?
Who is this cousin or niece or whoever that was looking?
Her name's Jennifer, and she just randomly ran into her at the carnival and was like, oh, help me find Timmy, he's gone. And I guess she used to babysit for them, and so they have a connection, and she knows Timothy, but it's just random that she would just run into it.
I guess if it's a small town carnival, you're gonna see everybody you know.
That's
so
true.
It's not that out of the realm of possibility. Yeah, that it could happen. But I'm not knowing that she went on this vacation and everything now. Couple that with her interview with the investigating officer. Now I'm even questioning if Timothy ever even went to this carnival.
Yep. In late October 1991, a man finds what he believes may be one of Timothy's sneakers. The shoe was found off the side of a road near a place called the Raritan Center. Only the left shoe was discovered. It was a child-size 13 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sneaker with one Ninja Turtle head on the side of the shoe. The man who finds it places it into a plastic bag and brings it to police. This man had actually been following Timothy's case, so when he doesn't see anything on the news about the sneaker being found, he becomes aggravated, and rightfully so. He thought this was an important piece of information and couldn't understand why the media wasn't spreading it like wildfire. After 3 weeks with no indication that it would be publicized, he goes to the press. The next day, the media blasts that the sneaker potentially belonging to the missing boy was found. They would later discover that authorities had in fact asked Michelle to come in to identify the sneaker, and she claims she isn't sure if it was Timothy's. And now, after the info is put out on the news, she wants to see the shoe again. And now she thinks it might be his. I would think this is likely the reason for no news coverage, because the first time she saw it, she's unsure if it belonged to him. However, it comes out later that police did their due diligence and confirmed that the serial number on the shoe matched that of the shoebox that had contained Timothy's sneakers when they were purchased.
Okay, this makes me think back to the Amy Mahalovic case when that mentally disturbed person called them. And because, like, they were under such stress from that case and from what was going on in their lives, that even if it didn't sound like their daughter, if that person called and was like, it's me, you know, I'm here, whatever that lady said, they are, like, running on all cylinders to try and find their kid. They're going to be like, that's her that called. So how this mother is not like, yes, that's the shoe. Even if it somewhat resembles, like, your hope that it is
there.
It's there, and that's what's going to be like, yes, we're at a dead end. Even if it's not, I'm going to say it is and go look and see if there's some type of link, some type of connection with that shoe being found near the Raritan Center and my kid being missing. The fact that she's like, I don't know.
It's just everything is piling one on another and another. It's like, are you ever going to, like, care? Do you care?
I don't like Michelle.
Okay. Timothy's remains would then be discovered in April of 1992, 6 months after that sneaker was found. They found his skull near a stream and would later search this stream and located a few other bones belonging to Timothy. They were able to confirm it was Timothy's skull with dental records. The remains were found less than a mile away from a place known as the Raritan Center Parkway, conveniently less than a mile away from the Raritan Center Industrial Park, where Michelle used to work.
I have no words. Continue.
Now, an odd thing to note about where his remains are found is that a psychic had called in just a few weeks before the shoe was found in October that year before, saying that Timothy's body would be discovered close to this particular industrial park. I'm not the type of person who really likes psychics or feels it necessary for them to become involved in missing persons or murder investigations. I guess maybe I'm a little freaked out by their supposed abilities because I refuse to get my palm read or have a psychic tell me my future because I don't want to know or be anticipating something that may or may not happen. I think psychics have a reputation for hindering investigations because it can lead people down a rabbit hole they really shouldn't be down. I mean, maybe a lucky guess on this one, or do you think that they really knew?
I don't know. I think that if you're hitting a wall in an investigation, which it doesn't seem that they were, like there was still information coming in. So like if you were hitting a wall, I could see going all avenues. And if this person wants to come forward and say, hey, let me use my special abilities or special powers to try and help you, and they can provide something and it's another lead that you can work. If it comes up with nothing, whatever, if it leads you into something that you didn't know before, okay. I have no problem with it, but I think the issue that I would have is when these psychics and stuff contact the family directly, and they're talking to the family and they're messing with their heads and messing with the hope,
which Michelle lacks,
yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah, clearly. But I don't know. This is just crazy. How old is Michelle?
23.
Okay, so she's a relatively young mother. She had him when she was 18. She a single mom?
Yes.
Okay. It's not out of...
the realm of possibility?
Yes, we live within the realm of possibility. At this point right now, there's no doubt in my mind that Michelle did something to her son and she is involved in his murder.
After Timothy's remains are discovered, they're unable to identify a cause of death. There aren't many bones that are found, and I would assume that there wasn't anything on those bones to indicate any wounds that could have resulted in his death. The police and FBI collect any evidence they can find in and around the area where Timothy's remains are found. The FBI had gotten involved early on in this investigation because there was the potential that Timothy's disappearance could have been an interstate kidnapping, and if any crime is committed across state lines, the FBI has jurisdiction to become involved. As they searched the area where they found Timothy's bones, they discovered a blanket in the dirt less than 20 feet away. They collected this, along with a few other things, such as a waistband from a piece of clothing, the matching right sneaker to the one found 6 months prior, a deflated balloon with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on it, and a pillowcase. According to court records, the FBI did not photograph the evidence as it lay in its original state on the ground. This is important to note about the FBI's evidence collection procedures, and that'll come into question later on in this story.
When I hear that, the only thing that goes through my head is now I'm worried that they're going to find out that Michelle is involved in this, and then because of the technicality of not photographing this evidence where it had laid, where they had found it, she's going to get off on some type of technicality. They're 100% going to link it to her, and then the judge is going to be like, well, you didn't take pictures of where that evidence laid, So I don't know if you procured it somewhere else and then tried to plant it on the mother to get her convicted, so... Dismissed!
You know, this is not like Georgia, right?
Well, the first judge that comes to mind is the one from My Cousin Vinny, and it was the guy that played Herman Munster, and he had a southern accent, so that's kind of what I was going for.
Okay, it was good. So, at this point, one might believe that Michelle would be a grieving mother who just lost her son, but no. This is where things start to get really wild. Police start notifying the public about discrepancies in Michelle's story. To go back a little bit, Michelle was questioned that first day after Timmy went missing, as you all heard in that little soundbite from the beginning of the episode. Well, apparently, she comes in just a few weeks later on June 6th to elaborate, or as I like to call it, completely change her story. Now, she's mentioning a woman supposedly named Ellen that she kind of knew. It's indicated in a few places online that Michelle knew this woman from when she was a bank teller, and that the so-called Ellen was a go-go dancer. But regardless of what this woman does for a living, or how Michelle supposedly knew her, it wasn't very well. She tells police that she asked this Ellen person to watch Timothy while she went to go get her soda. She also mentions that Ellen is with a younger-looking girl and 2 men. She says that when she gets back from grabbing her drink, all of them are gone. This isn't any sort of elaboration to me. This is a full-blown new story about what happened, just located at the same place. Red flags are already flying all over here. But it actually gets even crazier because on June 13th, Michelle is questioned again and has yet another story for detectives. I'm going to play this audio for you as well so you can get a vibe of the difference between her first story and this most recent one. For full transparency, the clip is pretty long, so we've cut out pieces that aren't pertinent to the exact statement that Michelle makes to police on June 13th. I really want you to hear what Michelle has to say happened rather than her explaining why she changed her story and the circumstances surrounding who she spoke to during the other statements. However, if you feel compelled to listen to the entire audio of all 3 interrogations, a link to the YouTube video is on our website, wickeddeedspodcast.com.
Would you tell me, please, why the facts and circumstances related on that date were not entirely correct?
I was afraid of how I didn't want to get hurt. I was afraid that she was going to get hurt.
Okay. Would you tell us, please, what those, how the facts and circumstances surrounding the actual disappearance of Timothy, would you relate them to us as you related them to the state police, please, from the time of your initial meeting with Ellen?
When I went to go get a drink, a man came up behind me with a gray brown hair. He put his arm around me. He showed me a knife. He said that he was cute. If I didn't want anything to happen to that face, I would keep my mouth shut and keep walking. And I might see him in a month. I'd get a phone call if I didn't say anything.
Michelle, the last statement you made relative to the Timothy would be appearing in a month and also you would be getting a phone call, that was not discussed with state police personnel at division headquarters, is that correct?
Right.
These last 2 facts, that being the phone call and the possible reappearance of Timothy within a month's time, did not come to light until we re-interviewed you here at Sayreville Police Headquarters after the state police interview, is that correct?
Yeah.
Michelle, would you tell us, please, why it has taken a series of successive interviews to bring out all of this additional information pertaining to the disappearance of Timothy?
I was afraid to say anything. I didn't want him to hurt him. They made a threat about him, and I don't want him to hurt him. And if I said that I was going to get a phone call in a month, and that Timmy would be back in a month, police would be at my house, and I might not get him back.
Okay, so did you hear that she said she gave another statement to state police versus Sayreville police in this recording? She had told the same story to state police, but again, a slightly different version. How many stories has she told at this point? Her credibility is non-existent.
Yeah, it's gone in every minute aspect imaginable. She sounds like she's totally detached from reality. Right now, like, it's really hard to hear the audio of her vocals, at least, and all I get is she's only saying this now because she got caught in some type of lie or whatever, or she's like a little kid that's got in trouble and they're trying to act innocent because they don't want to have like the wrath of the full repercussions.
And that's how I felt about it when I first started listening to this. So in the first statement that she gives to police, she seems fine, totally normal, like nothing even happened, and she's just talking about the fact that her kid went missing, like completely nonchalant. Now I definitely get what you're saying. Like, as I was listening to it, I'm like, she's trying to sound like she's scared, and that's what I pictured too, like her, knees up in the chair, like all sad, and that she's detached from reality. The recollection of events she told the state police was that she still ran into this Ellen person, and she offered to watch Timmy for her when she went to go get her soda. However, this story changes and now becomes threatening when she tells police that one of the men that was with Ellen followed her and then subsequently pulled a knife on her. To elaborate on this recording, since it's really difficult to hear, especially in the beginning when she's asked why she's changing her story, she does clarify further into the statement, but she said that she was afraid to tell the truth because she thought that the men that took Timmy would hurt him. You would think that the whole reason for taking him in the first place was to hurt him, but okay.
This is like so out there.
If you're going to plan something like this, you think you might do a little bit better job.
Okay, so you don't want to tell the real story because you're worried that the people that took your child might hurt him. Yet by giving the actual account of the story, you may give information that leads to your son being found and brought back to you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense. Like, why would you not want to tell police about that? Because then like, you didn't even give a suspect the first time.
Uh-huh.
You didn't even be like, oh my God, this guy, he's a white guy, he's tall, he's got a scruffy mustache or a beard or whatever, and he pulled a knife on me and he threatened me, and I think that he might be involved in this.
Yep.
You give that right off the bat, then you have the police looking for potential suspect.
And then you, oh my God, I don't know, work on a sketch like every other concerned parent seems to do if they've seen this person.
Right. They already stole your kid. There's a good chance they're probably going to harm your kid.
Right? And honestly, how stupid do you think she thought the police were to believe this?
I don't understand how this guy interrogating her or taking a statement from her doesn't just like hammer her and be like, how does this make any sense? I understand, like, when you're taking a statement, you have planned questions. That way, when you go through and you look at the report or whatever, it'll be like, this is the question that was asked. This is the answer. This is the question that was asked. This is the answer. So it's really easy to go through and see how the exact statement went. Mm-hmm. So an interrogation would be different because then you can just hammer and just be like, hey, you told us this before. Why is it changed now? And you can kind of go into it in a less formal way. How he doesn't do that blows my mind, especially if he's a parent.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
I totally agree. And based on some documents I found online, there are actually several other versions of this story that she supposedly told to an ex-boyfriend and to police.
I was just going to say that. I wonder what type of stories she told to everybody else that she was talking to. She seems like a psychopath that would literally make up a different story for each person she's talking to, and it changes every single time.
Pretty much. I mean, at the end of the day, like, she starts with her first story that is just basic, he's lost.
Right.
But then she adds in Ellen, and then she adds in these other guys, and then she adds in the knife, and then as she's adding things in, she's changing little bits and pieces. So I am sure anyone that she actually, like, divulged this information to has some sort of different story, and that does come up later.
It would almost have been better for her to stick to that original story the entire time.
100%. And even if she's coming out like, I don't want to be this grieving mother and saying all these things, fine. You still have your one story and you kind of have some credibility. Even if you're kind of like aloof about the situation and people are like, oh, she's acting weird. Fine. But you don't have like a bazillion different stories and just none of it making sense.
It's totally believable that this mom looked away for 30 seconds, 2 minutes, or whatever, and somebody snatched her kid and ran away. It could happen.
Yeah.
But now that you say, oh, that happened. Oh, no, then I saw this Ellen person, and this guy just randomly came up and, after they were watching my kid, flashed a knife on me. Why would he come up to you and flash a knife? That is not a common thing for somebody to just come up to you, unless they're trying to rob you, or unless they know you and they're trying to threaten you or something like that. Nobody just comes up and flashes a knife at you for no reason.
In the middle of a busy carnival.
She is so stupid. I hate this lady.
So So, I said before things start to get wild, and I was not kidding. Michelle herself now goes missing in January of 1994. Her car was left running with the door open at her brother's apartment, and after family discovers a car like this, they call police to report her missing. Well, I shit you not, she is found the next day, claiming that these two guys abducted her were FBI agents. Authorities clearly know this is a lie, and she even admits to it later. I guess she wanted to run away and faked a kidnapping because a friend of hers was getting in trouble for illegally running license plates of people that were following her. So she was going to be getting a court order in the next few days and just decided that this was the best way to get away from all the drama, and create more drama. She actually does get punished for her stupidity, though, and she receives 3 years probation and a form of house arrest for her actions.
These are the type of people that you can't even deal with. You cannot have like a common, normal interaction with them because they're so whacked out of their mind. Every little aspect of her life has to revolve around lying and creating these stories and trying to be the center of attention, or when she gets caught or thinks she's going to get in trouble, receding into a childlike state and being like, oh, I can just run away and get rid of all of my problems.
Not much happens for the next 16 to 17 years. However, in 2011, the investigation would be reignited. A detective would receive a tip that would actually turn out to be irrelevant in this case, but it brought his attention back to it to reopen and start investigating again. The detective would start interviewing family and friends, and one big piece of this investigation was that blanket that was found near Timmy's remains. Several people the detective interviewed confirmed that that blanket had belonged to Michelle. Finally, in 2014, Michelle is arrested for Timothy's murder, and her trial begins on March 16, 2016. Now, I have watched a good chunk of videos on some of the testimony at trial, and it's pretty fascinating what ends up coming out. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the trial, I want to go back to before Timothy goes missing. I guess there were some hardships in his and Michelle's lives. Timothy had some health issues he was struggling with, and as he got older, the issues were getting worse. Michelle was a young, single mother. Timothy's father was not in the picture. And in case you're wondering, yes, he was vetted, and police determined he had nothing to do with Timothy's disappearance, and was actually in Iowa at the time he went missing. So Michelle was struggling. One of her brother's ex-girlfriends even testified at trial about this. She had claimed that Michelle stated that she was a, quote, weekend mother, and that she, quote, was not made for this shit. To me, it seems like him going missing was more of a relief to her. You can even hear this in her voice in that initial statement like we were talking about before. She doesn't act like a frantic, worried mother. She sounds chill and relaxed and like all her problems have now gone away. Also, come to find out, Michelle now has 2 teenage sons. So, she kills her first child but then proceeds to have more kids later? Does that create reasonable doubt? Or do we think she just killed Timothy to get him out of the way while she was struggling, and then maybe later in life felt more ready to be a mom?
I don't know. I don't think it adds reasonable doubt to the fact that Michelle is 100%. I mean, we're coming to conclusions early on. Like, we have no physical evidence. You're not showing me anything that would 100% prove it. But an intelligent person can, see that Michelle is clearly involved in this, and she should be charged and convicted of murder for her child. I have no reasonable doubt. There's just too many factors revolving around the original story, all the subsequent stories, the kid's found near where she works. She doesn't care about the shoe when the shoe is found. It's like, come on.
It is all circumstantial, but every possible itty-bitty piece of circumstantial evidence points to her in a negative light.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things at the trial has to do with the testimony from Michelle's niece, Jennifer, that we talked about earlier, and her babysitters. The blanket that was found near Timothy's remains actually becomes the main reason why they ended up charging her with his murder. These witnesses all testified that this blanket belonged to Michelle. They had seen it in her house before. The odd thing about the blanket, though, had to do with the fact that there's no trace evidence on it. No hairs, no DNA, no unique fibers. So, I don't really understand why that would be the number one reason to decide to charge her. I guess because it's already purely a circumstantial case. But, going back to a previous case, Amy Mihaljevic, The curtain and blanket police found near her body had trace evidence on it, and that had been out in the open for like 3 months. So you'd think this blanket found in Timothy's case would have something on it if it did belong to them, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, I don't know what goes into finding trace fibers and things like that onto this blanket. Wasn't he found like near a stream?
Mm-hmm.
Could this blanket have been dumped and washed in the stream? And could that have removed all of this potential evidence and then left and placed over there? I mean, could rain have removed it?
I would ask the same thing in Amy Mihaljevich's case. You would assume it was Ohio and in the winter, so rain, snow, anything, it didn't wash any of those away.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, if you can place that blanket in Michelle's house, couple that with all the other stuff, charge her, get her under the heat, and if it doesn't stick, it doesn't stick, but see what she does once the pressure's on her.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, trial moves on and we hear from multiple other witnesses. The cops who interrogated her, her sister, her niece, the ex-girlfriend of her brothers. I found her sister's testimony to be particularly interesting because she claims that Michelle called her at 3 or 4 in the morning the next day to let her know Timothy was missing. But based on those interrogation tapes that we listened to, Michelle wasn't questioned until the 26th, which was the next day. So what was going on between when Timothy went missing around 7 or 8 o'clock that night on the 25th and when she called her sister around 3 a.m. on the 26th? Also, if you'd known for so long he'd been missing, why are you calling her at such a weird time? Her sister also said Michelle was distraught, unable to eat, and an emotional mess. But clearly, we can tell she wasn't. She went on a frickin' vacation, for God's sake. She even told the press she wasn't going to be that emotional person because that's what they wanted from her. So was she only emotional behind closed doors? How can you turn it on and off like that?
Because you're a sociopath.
Right?
You do it for the attention. You want to be the center of attention at all times. That's why they become pathological liars, and that's why they form these stories, and they tell a new story to a new person all the time, because a new story both intrigues them for the thrill of lying and it intrigues the person that's hearing it, and by her gaining the attention of the person she's telling the story to, it gives her that thrill or whatever that she wants.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that I have a very small ability to think of her in a good light.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that when she called her sister or whatever, and she was acting distraught, I think it was exactly that. I think it was an act.
Yeah, agreed. Some of the detectives and police officers that had questioned Michelle are also put on the stand at trial. One that stood out to me in particular was one from a woman. They didn't list her name, but I'll link to the video on our website. Her testimony really made me think Michelle is the person that did this. This nailed it in for me. I'm assuming based on her testimony as well that she was one of the officers that questioned her once the knife was introduced into the story, so maybe she worked for state police. The woman asks Michelle why she wouldn't just yell and scream in the middle of the carnival to bring attention to the fact that there is a man with a knife trying to take her child. Her reasoning was supposedly that she thought the man who was holding Timmy also had a knife and would hurt him if she screamed. This retired officer who was questioned is also asked about Michelle's demeanor and how she references Timothy in her questioning, and the woman on the stand responds by saying that Michelle only refers to him in the third person as, quote, he. She never calls him by his name or as her son. This is totally her distancing herself from him and from the situation. This officer also said she used Timmy's name in the past tense to see if Michelle would react, and she didn't. When testimony ends and the jurors gather for deliberations, a huge bombshell is revealed that could alter the verdict in this case. One of the jurors is found to have done his own research during trial, which is a huge no-no, so they excuse him and replace him with another juror. The reason he's excused is because he was looking up what the FBI's protocol for evidence collection was back in the early 90s. So, this goes back to the way the evidence was collected, particularly that blanket, back when they found Timothy's remains. The FBI agent had said they didn't have a particular protocol for this, and they weren't, quote, required to photograph the evidence exactly as it was. I 100% understand the fact that as a juror, you have pretty much taken an oath and you will follow the rules. But as a human being, I can also understand why he might want to look further into something like this because it's just so weird. Why would there not be a protocol for evidence collection and photographing said evidence?
I mean, if I was that juror, I would have been looking at the other direction. I would have been like, I need to find all the reasons to convict this bitch because she clearly did it. While he's like looking at the FBI trying to get her off on a technicality, he's like, well, the FBI didn't take photographs of that blanket, so do I really know that that blanket was there? I wonder. Him and I would have been on different ends of the jury
you'd
box
have ended up on a hung jury with that one.
Yeah, probably.
So I find the fact that they replaced the juror with an alternate really interesting because how can someone who hasn't sat through any of the trial have a good idea of the evidence that was presented? But either way, the jury deliberates and finds Michelle Ledzinski guilty of first-degree murder of her son, Timothy Wiltsey.
Thank the Lord. I would have been so pissed if she got off on a technicality based on the chain of evidence or not taking photos of the evidence where it lied or whatever. I would have been very upset.
Well, an appeal would later be filed due to the misconduct of that juror, and the appeal is based on one fact, that the judge should have declared a mistrial. I mean, I'm not super into the judicial system and exactly how it works, but I lean towards not allowing the new trial. I would assume you feel the same.
I mean, yeah. I would hope that just putting in a new juror would fix the situation, and if they really have to go over all the evidence that was previously presented for the new juror, do it, as opposed to declaring a mistrial and letting this chick off.
And I would think that's probably what the judge was thinking too.
Yeah. You have other jurors that are there that know exactly what was going on, that if they really need to, they can explain and just say, hey, this is what happened, this is where we're all at. And hopefully, he can read the writing on the wall and say, yeah, she probably did it.
Yeah. Well, the good news is her appeal was denied in May of 2021, and Michelle's sentence stays put. 30 years in prison for the murder of her son. This is just a heartbreaking case all around. Poor Timothy had such a bright life ahead of him, but it was snuffed out due to the selfishness of his mother. I believe justice was served in this case, and the person responsible has received appropriate punishment. We really want to know what you think. Follow us on Instagram at wicked.deeds.podcast and comment on our post about this case and tell us your thoughts. We'd love to discuss with all of you. Thank you all again for listening in. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening on. But most importantly, tune in next week for an all-new episode.